Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, as they say, April showers bring May flowers, but April also brings the Masters. That's right, probably the biggest golf tournament, one of the biggest golf tournaments, probably the top 4 golf tournaments in the world. The Masters is probably the top, followed by the British Open, called the Open, and the U.S. Open and PGA Championships, pretty much in that order. But the Masters, it's a classic event, folks. But broadcasters of the Masters, in case you watch the Masters on television, broadcasters are instructed to say and not say certain things. Now, the CBS has been broadcasting the Masters since 1956, and they've had the likes of Vin Scully and Pat Summerall and Vern Lundquist and lately Jim Nantz, all broadcasting the Masters. But the announcers are told there's certain things they can and cannot say when they're broadcasting this event. It's that pristine. Now, we always talk about golf fans, right? Well, the Masters feel that's a derivative of the term fanatics. And at the Masters, well, the broadcasters are not allowed to say fans. They must instead say patrons. The patrons are here today. All right, that's one thing. And then when you talk about, oh, he hit it in a rough. Hey, you don't say rough at the Masters. You say, he hit it into the second cut. That's the rule at the Masters when you're broadcasting it. There's no such thing as a sand trap at the Masters. No. Those are all called bunkers. Got it in the left bunker, the right bunker, whatever. And when you go out playing, you say, well, we got finished the front 9, now we got the back 9 coming up. No, at the Masters, you do not say the back 9. You say the second 9. This thing for you to watch on TV. Now, when they go to they're warming up. You go, what? Normally you go over to the driving range. You know, hit a few, putt a few, chip a few, whatever. At the Masters, it's called the tournament practice area. You do not refer to it as the driving range, the tournament practice area. And speaking of the Masters, whether you call it a country club or a golf course, Masters is referred to as the Augusta National Golf Club. That's how the announcers are instructed to refer to it. And at the Masters, a twosome is not called a twosome. You only get that in the last, when you get paired off in the, later rounds. That's called a pairing. Well, we have the first pairing and the second pairing. It's not twosomes. And then the last round of the Masters is not called the fourth round. Hey, we're playing the fourth round. No, it's the final round. Yep. And last but not least, the Masters does not allow announcers to talk about other tournament sponsorships. So let's say you were talking about someone who won the Texas Shell Open, okay? Texas Shell Open, sponsored by Shell. At the Masters, you're only allowed to say as an announcer, he won the Texas Open. Those are the real strange things that are required at the Masters golf tournament, and that's what the announcers are only allowed to say. So if you watch it, you see it on TV, you hear them say certain things, you go, well, that's not normally the way we say it. That's because tradition is a big thing at the Masters. And the announcers, they have to abide by the same rules set up by the Masters because, well, the Masters is the world's greatest golf tournament. The Masters golf tournament has been around, well, probably since the 1930s. And in that entire time, not once was a woman admitted into the Augusta National Golf Club. Not once. Well, until 2012. Back then, somebody finally had an awakening, apparently, and 2 women were actually allowed into the Augusta National Club. One was a lady by the name of Darla Moore. She's a financial guru, a money honey, and she was admitted, and the other one was none other than Condoleezza Rice. You may remember her as the Secretary of State during the Bush administration. Well, those 2 ladies were admitted. Well, there were 7 total ladies that have been admitted into the Augusta National Club over the years since 2012. Started off with Anika Sorenstam. Now, Anika, that's a golfer. She's considered one of the best and the greatest of all time for lady golfers, she's admitted. And then there's another lady called Virginia Romedy. And she is the CEO of IBM. You're saying, well, why would they admit a CEO of the IBM? IBM handles all the scoring information, all the data information, everything for the Masters. They cover everything. So, well, they give the CEO, head of IBM, a membership. And by the way, Ms. Romedy has a golf handicap of 35. That's a pretty high handicap. Now, also somebody else they admitted in was a lady by the name of Diana Murphy. Diana Murphy, you say, well, another woman, who is she? She's president of the USGA. Hence, well, she gets admitted. And another lady was Anna Botten. Anna Botten is the head of a group called Banco Santander. That's a Spanish bank. She happens to be the sister-in-law of none other than Sevi Ballesteros. But she's a head financial lady for this big bank. She was admitted into the Augusta National. She got an 8 handicap, by the way. And then, here's another one, kind of interesting. Heidi Uberoff. You're going to go, Heidi Uberoff. Why does that name ring a bell? Peter Uberoff, remember? Football? Peter Uberoff? That's his daughter. So, yes, there are 7 women who are now members of the Augusta National Golf Club, and they started admitting ladies back in 2012. And here we are, almost 15 years later? Still 7, that's all they have. Some little sidelight you might like to know about Augusta. A lot of airplanes fly into Augusta, private jets, if you will. There are over 150 jets parked on the apron at the Augusta National, they don't own their own golf airport, Augusta Airport. Over 100 jets. Apparently the big money happens to be in golfing. It's a gentleman's sport, and everybody flies in their jets. And like I said, they completely packed that airport with private jets. Serious flying, folks. Serious money. And now, 7 ladies are now members of the Augusta National Golf Club. And God bless them. Hopefully someday there will be more. Does anybody remember something called the Publishers Clearinghouse? PCH, they used to call it. Well, you get an envelope saying, hey, you could win. Why, the prize patrol is going to come out to your house and give you a giant check, and they will show you videos. People getting these big giant checks. Oh my gosh, I won the money. All that stuff that was going on. This folks started out back in 1953. A couple and their daughter came up with the concept of getting people to, convince folks to subscribe to magazines. Well, ultimately, it grew into a bigger thing, a bigger company, if you will, Publishers Clearinghouse. And with that, the prize patrol. Remember the prize patrol came along? Oh, yeah. Well, here's what's happened, folks. Publishers Clearinghouse has decided to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's right. Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the Publishers Clearinghouse because, guess what? People change, their tastes change, and what they do changes, especially involving reading. Here's the biggest problem that's happened to them. People have said, hey, I don't want to be on your mailing list because now how many people want to be on mailing lists and they don't want magazines. And the reason is people no longer read magazines like they used to. Heck, it was just announced that even Reader's Digest is filing for bankruptcy. The venerable Reader's Digest. But Publishers Clearinghouse, with their big prize patrol, is now going digital. That's right. If you've got a computer, if you've got an email address, look for things starting to happen on your computer from Publishers Clearinghouse. They're going to come after you online. Subscribe to this, subscribe to that, but the problem is, people don't like that stuff anymore. People don't read anymore. Ask yourself, how many magazines do you get? More and more magazines are going digital, folks. It's the cost of printing. It's the cost of mailing. It's the cost of distribution. It's the cost of everything. It's easier to do online Well, you don't have any cost to worry about for printing costs, mailing costs. Just get people to say, hey, sign me up. And they'll read online. And with more people with their tablets reading stuff online. But Publishers Clearinghouse has filed bankruptcy. And their biggest problem is, well, money. They don't have it anymore. Matter of fact, they've got assets of $11.7 million. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, their debt is $65.7 million. So you got $11 million in assets and you got $65 million in debt. You ain't going to be in business too long, folks. Guarantee you. So PCH, the Prize Patrol, apparently they're going to still be out there somewhere, but now everything is going digital. No more using the mail service. No more trying to con you into getting something. Oh, if you subscribe to more magazines, oh, you had a better chance of winning. Well, the problem with that is they got hit with lawsuits, so they lost. So there's where we are, folks. Companies like PCH, Publishers Clearinghouse, and even venerable magazines like Reader's Digest are going out of business because the world is changing, and frankly, everybody's going digital. Well, there's been a great deal of talk about what a president can do and what a president can't do, and things that have been going on. And frankly, the courts have been inundated with all sorts of lawsuits going on, and that's a big problem in our world. But the latest has come out, and take a look at this. Remember the judges that came out, the various district judges? There's about, I think there's there's a number of district judges. Those judges are appointed by Congress, all right? They're district judges. But they were making what they called universal rulings. Well, they can't do that. A judge can only take care of between one party and two parties. You got party A, party B. He's got to decide in favor of which party and which party, okay? He can't declare a universal ruling, and that's what they were trying to do. Hence, ends up at the Supreme Court. And then there were people saying, well, the president can't fire all the federal employees. Folks, when Bill Clinton got into office, he fired nearly 400,000. 400,000 employees. And the first thing he did, he fired virtually every U.S. attorney in the United States. A lot of folks don't remember that. Some of us old people do. And then you had the likes of Barack Obama saying, well, we got to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Well, you know what? The president said when he gets into office, he's going to go through every line of the budget and see where money's being spent. Turns out one agency's got more credit cards than they have people in the entire agency. And when they're checking the bills that people use the credit cards, they're looking to find out where was this money going, who to go to, and what to go to for. The lines in the accounting office are blank. People are filching the government. Credit cards like that, you use credit cards like that from your company? I sure don't. Now, the last thing is that if the president wants to fire people and get rid of people, he has that right. That's what the Constitution says. And he runs the executive office. Now, you may not like that, but that's what the executive does. You got three stools in the government. You got legislative, judicial, and the executive branch. Each runs by itself. Each have their control. So, yes, he can fire people. Yes, he can deport people, by the way. That law from 1795, U.S. Supreme Court said it's legit. You can get rid of people out of the country. Or do you want those people living in your home? Or killing your kids or raping your daughter? Sorry. It can be done. So we got a mess going on right now, and I agree with a lot of folks on this. You may not like what's going on, but other presidents have done it. And frankly, down the road, we'll see what happens. But right now, America voted. America put Donald Trump into office. You don't have to like it. I'm sorry. But he's there, and the people who voted for him said, we want you to get in and clean up the sewer that's Washington, D.C. And folks, it is a sewer. We're learning that. And now you're finding out that people in the own government are filching and taking money, and it's waste, fraud, and abuse. And nobody knows what's going on. Oh, yes, it's going to get ugly for a while. And yes, some of the stuff going on with the trade issues and the tariffs and everything else, the biggest problem we have in America, whether you like it or not, is China. China is a big problem. And if you want to see where the real problem is, yes, the other countries have their thing going on, but they're coming to America saying, hey, we want a deal. We don't want to do this tariff stuff. China's a big problem. And the problem is not going to go away. And there's where the whole problem lies in the world is China. Keep an eye out. Be careful. Watch your six. That's what's going on, folks. And I'm sorry to say that, but now you understand. It ain't fun out there, and I wouldn't want to be president for anybody's money. But at least we're trying to get some stuff done, whether you like it or not. Well, the chances are you've heard the story about that Stephanie Turner woman. She was the fencing individual who decided to take a knee rather than fence a man in a woman's fencing match. Well, we know what happened to her. She was given a black card, which means she was removed from the competition. Not really sure where that's going to end up, but here's another one that has now come to light. This is in a sport you probably don't know much about, because I didn't know much about it. It's disc golf. Now, everybody knows about playing golf, but, well, there's the sport of disc golf. And I've seen that played some years ago by young folks going out with frisbees and throw them at a metal chain basket, and like it's golf. And you got to hit the basket and score, and basically it's like golf, and the parks have these things, the chain baskets. Everybody goes around a course and throws their frisbee and tries to get the best score. Well, apparently there's a pro division, which I was unaware of. And they had a disc golf pro tour in Nashville, Tennessee. So apparently it's a pro tour where you can make money. Well, a young lady by the name of Abigail Wilson was competing in the event. And she was due to play and go off against an individual. Turns out the person that she was going against was, well, a guy who apparently believes he's a woman. Uses the name Natalie Ryan. Well, at the event, you could see what was going on. She walked up to the starting line and basically turned around and said, you know what? This is a woman's game. This is a woman's division. A man shouldn't be playing in this. And she abruptly walked off and said, no, not going to be doing this. It's not safe. I don't want to get involved with this. And frankly, it's a woman's division. Well, obviously, the officials running the event were not pleased with her performance. So she was talking to him, and during the course of the conversation, she used the word him, H-I-M. Well, the official at the event was so outraged, told her that if she uses that term again, she would be removed from the tour. Now, that's putting a threat on somebody, saying, hey, you accept it the way we tell you it is, or else you don't play. Now, disc golf. So most people say, minor sport, who cares? Fencing, minor sport, who cares? But let me tell you about one sport where this could create a problem if somebody shows up to do this. What would happen, do you think, if in the LPGA, the Ladies Professional Golf Association, a gentleman shows up, says he identifies as a woman, and he wants to play on their tournament? How do you think that would go over in America? How do you think the golfing world would react to that? To tell you the truth, I do not believe that until such time that a major tournament is breached by someone who wants to be something else that they're not, steps in and tries to make it happen. Till that happens, I don't think you're going to see anything going on because most people don't know, don't care, and are not interested in anything below the major stuff. It's just my opinion. But now now Abigail Wilson is apparently out of a job. Can't earn any more because she's, well, not on the tour playing against guys. Sad state of affairs, folks. Sad state of affairs. But this is what we're living in. And until we get ourselves back on course, it ain't going to get better, folks. It's going to get worse. You know, one of the biggest things people have been talking about lately is all those new fancy centers and data centers going up all across the United States. As you know, we've got a big one going up in Fort Wayne, over there on the southeast side. But there's also another one going up, in the South Bend area. As a matter of fact, a lot of these data centers are opening up in the Midwest, all over the place. Why do they open up in the Midwest? Well, they need two things in particular: electricity and water. That's right, electricity and water. And they need those back in heavy amounts to keep things cool. That's one of the big things. And right there, they're saying that these new data centers are going to require twice as much electricity because of AI. They figure that's going to happen by 2030. So you figure 6 years from now, AI is going to be so prevalent, these data centers are going to have to suck more electricity out of the system. Now, if you take a look what's happening in our electricity demand, take a look at this. It is growing exponentially. I mean, yes, the data centers are about 10% more, but everything else is drawing more electricity. Folks, our system, our grid, we call it, we don't have the capacity to do that. How can we create more electricity? Well, it's a very good question. But how are we going to distribute more electricity? If you take a look right now, you go outside, take a look at the towers around, all the electric towers, the electric substations all around the city. You drive around the city, you're seeing more of these substations showing up everywhere. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reason is people are asking for more electricity, and they're going to need more. And AI is coming out, folks, and it's happening. Well, it's happening right now. And every one of those things requires electricity and cooling. And the biggest thing we have to deal with, well, what do we have here in the Midwest? We got plenty of water. And the companies are going to require plenty of water. But if we decide, well, electric cars, you got to charge them. That's part of the problem we're dealing with. So, you better start thinking about it, folks. How are we going to depend and how are we going to survive if our data centers are requiring so much more electricity, our industries are requiring more electricity, and, well, everything else we got going on, even the transport industry requires more electricity. We're running ourselves between a rock and a hard place. It's going to be happening very soon as 2030, which is only, 5 years from now? Imagine how we're going to try to survive. And where are we going to get all this electricity? That, my friends, is a very big problem. And the problem is maybe there won't be enough for your home. Think about that. That's where things are going, folks. Now you understand a little bit more. Where's the electricity coming from? And can we make more? And can we distribute more? And why? Do we need it all? Because we want it. That's why. Ever since Donald Trump was elected back in November of last year, there's been a lot of talk from people, I called it agenda talk, saying about certain things that have happened. One in particular happens to be the, airlines, airplane crashes, all kinds of airplane crashes. And I've heard the talk of people saying, ever since Trump came in, he's firing all these people, air crashes are going up, it's his fault. And I went, let me find out. So, did a little checking with the government, just see what the government's records were. And here is something for you to take a look at. Now, look at this. This is the aircraft accident report based upon years. So let's go with 2025. In January, there were 67. In 2024, there were 86. Make it 85. In February of this year, there was 78. 2024 was 93. In March, there had 8. And in 2024, it was 113. Now, if you want to throw around all the noise about saying, Trump is laying off everybody in the government, he's laying off the air traffic controllers. Nah, ain't happening. The numbers, and you could take a look for countless number of years and see exactly what's happened in air crashes. Yes, it gets noticed a whole lot, but if the media is going to cover more of it, you're going to get it noticed a lot. If they've got an agenda, that's exactly what's going to happen, folks. You're going to hear a lot more about it. But those are the numbers, not mine. Those are right from the United States government. Now, Something else they've been talking about. How has the economy done with Ronald Reagan, with George Bush, Jimmy Carter, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump? All right, you might look at yourself and say, well, how did they all do it economy-wise? Turns out there's a chart called the presidential inflation rate, or PIR. Now, take a look at this chart. All right, Joe Biden, take a look. Joe Biden, overall, his inflation rate was 15%. All right, that's pretty high. Donald Trump's inflation rate, since he's been in, is 4.1%. Obama, by the way, was 4.8%. So, just something for you to take a look at. Now, take a look at food costs involving inflation. For Biden, it was 18.3. For Trump, it's 3.6. And Obama was 1.9. So his was lower. When it comes to energy costs and inflation, Biden's went up 37.2%. Trump's went up 1.6%. And Obama's went up 29.9%. And finally, on the rent factor, that's another big thing we talk about. Well, for Biden, rent factor went up 13.5%. Under Trump, 7.5%. But under Obama, once again, it went up only 1.6%. Now, you take a look at that and say, well, wait, who's the worst? Who had the worst record? Go down Jimmy Carter, 1976 to 1980. His overall rate of inflation was 18.1%. That's higher than Biden's. His food cost went up 24.5%, higher than Biden's. Energy cost, 18.1%. Well, Biden's went up 37%, so, well, we know how that worked out. And finally, on rent costs, Jimmy Carter's rent price went up 14.2%. Biden's only 13.5%. So, if you want to take a look at decades and say, who did what and who was good and who was bad, there's the numbers, folks. Nobody's lying to you. Take a look at the numbers and you see for yourself. And don't necessarily believe what you see in the media sometimes, because let's be honest, they have an agenda, just so you know. If you're one of those people that follows law professors, and I don't think there's a whole lot of who do that, there is one famous law professor from Harvard, emeritus now, Alan Dershowitz. Now, the name may ring a bell. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor. You've seen him on TV. You've seen him almost everywhere. First time I really remember Alan Dershowitz was at the O.J. trial in 1994. Well, that was a long time ago, obviously. But there he was on the O.J. side, the O.J. team side. And I used to kind of admire Professor Dershowitz back in those days, but when I saw that, I got a little upset, and frankly, I was no longer enamored with him. But over the years, I've kind of mellowed a little bit, and realizing that lawyers do sometimes what they do because, well, what they believe. Well, anyway, Alan Dershowitz has been a lifelong Democrat. I mean, for his entire life, family, he's Jewish, okay? And he's very strong Jewish. He has met with all the folks over in Israel. He's very tight on this, and he makes no bones about it. He's Jewish. He admits it. And but as a Democrat for a long time ago, he said, things have changed. He said, I have seen my party go against me. The Democrat convention we had, last summer, he said, hey, that whole party went anti-Israel. People were spokesmen, people were speaking, people were outside. It was anti-Israel. Well, Alan Dershowitz is very pro-Israel, and I mean very pro-Israel. But the thing that pushed him over the edge, he said, I've had enough, was when Bibi Netanyahu came to the United States and wanted to address a co-grouping of the Congress, Senate and the House at the same time. Well, that's where then Vice President Kamala Harris would normally run the event. She'd run the rodeo, except she didn't. And that really upset Dr. Dershowitz. He said, that's it. I'm done, tired, I'm finished, kaput. Alan Dershowitz has left the Democrat Party. Now, others have done the same thing. Ronald Reagan said he didn't leave the party left him. Former Democrat, and says, nope, I'm out. We have seen so many Democrats come out and say, the party is not the party I used to be a part of. Well, Alan Dershowitz is one of those, and he said, the party has become anti-Israel, anti-Zionist. He said, and that's destroyed the party. And he said, I can no longer be in good heart be a liberal Democrat. So he is now an independent. But you might be surprised, he is working a lot with the administration of one Donald. Backing of the country of Israel. And that's what Dr. Dershowitz says. And here's one other thing. He now does a nightly weekday television show on YouTube. Last 30 minutes, half an hour. I admit I watch it. Talks about law things, current things, stuff that is going on, his past. A lot of interesting stuff. It's called The Dersh Show. And you can see it on YouTube. That's where I watch it every day. And you know what? I learned something. Thanks to now independent Alan Dershowitz. If your home was built in the 1980s and 1990s, the chances are pretty good that when your landscaper came in and put in your trees to make your house look nice when you first built it, the trees that they put in, or at least one of them, was what is known as a Bradford Pear. Oh, yeah, in the spring, their blossoms come out. They're nice and pretty, and they're white. I mean, it looks like cherry blossoms for crying out loud, but they're not. Bradford pears, they kind of stinky blossoms. But here's the problem with those Bradford pears that you have in front of your house. They're a very weak plant. Bad weather comes in, you get ice or something like that, or winds, it'll break the branches. They're brittle. Their shelf life, or their length of life they live, normally 15 to 25 years. But here's the biggest problem. If you have a Bradford pear in your house, chances are pretty good you ain't getting grass growing underneath it. Just doesn't turn green. Why? Because the Bradford pear is not a native plant to Indiana. It's an import. And it's destroying and actually cutting out certain trees, native trees. Turns out that a county here in Indiana is decided to, we'll pay you if you get rid of the Bradford pears in your house. Now, some places out there, you go out and drive around, you're going to see all these beautiful white blossoms. You're going, yep, ain't nothing growing under those things. That's the problem. Well, down there in Hamilton County, Indiana, which is north of Indianapolis, Fishers, if you know where that is, Fishers, the county, is paying every resident, if they get rid of the Bradford pears in their lot, they get $400. Now, I don't know if we want to do that in Fort Wayne. I don't know if we have the money to do anything like that for the people that have Bradford pears. But the conservation people and the agricultural folks are saying, folks, you've been duped, you've been flip-flammed, you've been bowsered into having a plant in your house is not good for it. But it looked pretty. That was the problem when they came in. In the spring, everybody loves the white buds. Oh, look how nice those are. Not a good plant. So they're recommending you tear those things out, tear them up, rip them out, put in something like a dogwood. They got nice blossoms. They look pretty good, but they're not destroying the lawn underneath the tree. So there's the latest thing. Good old Hamilton County, Indiana, which is big money if you look at it as far as Indianapolis goes. That's where the money people live. In Fishers, Indiana, they got the money. They're giving people $400 per lot to get rid of their Bradford pears. So if you happen to have a Bradford pear, they're recommending that you get rid of it. It's not a good plant. It's invasive, and it's going to make life a living heck for the grass underneath your trees because it probably isn't going to turn green. Something to think about for the conservative gardener, and getting rid of something that's an invasive plant and not native to Indiana. Something to think about if you're out there making your place look good. It ain't a Bradford pear, folks. And be careful when you go to your arborist or your greenhouse because they're still selling them. Don't get duped. Don't get a Bradford Pear. Get yourself something nice like a dogwood. Sounds better anyway, doesn't it? Let me ask you a question. Do you have a bucket list? Oh, people are going, what's a bucket list? Well, bucket list is something you really want to do. And during your life, you're going to say, well, there's certain things I want to do. And if you remember, there was a movie back some years ago with Jack Nicholson and Mr. Freeman, and it dealt with having a bucket list for these two older gentlemen who were, well, diagnosed to be dying. So they decided they were going to do everything on their bucket list, and it became a very popular movie. Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson going out and doing all kinds of stuff. And it was kind of touching and heartwarming, but a bucket list is something you want to do. All right, here's some people's bucket list. Some people are thinking about maybe going to New York City. New York City, well, you just saw what happened in New York City on a helicopter ride. There's a lot of people and a lot of companies in New York that offer helicopter rides. So there's various ones out there you could choose from. You could either start in New Jersey or start in New York or what have you. Average helicopter ride costs about $300 per person, and they last anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes. Usually they go down to the south end of the island, circle around the Statue of Liberty, and then go up the Hudson River so you can kind of see the Hudson River and New York, with New Jersey on one side, New York on the other, and see the sights. And you go up to the northern part of the island. You turn back around and come back down. Now, that's one of the things you can do. And but like I said, if you want to spend $300 a person, you can do it. You know what happened in New York? 5 people were killed when a particular aircraft went down. Now, I can tell you this, that in the last 2 decades, I believe 5 helicopters have gone down in New York and killed 20 people. So, going to be dangerous? Yes. Maybe if you're looking for another way to see New York, you might do it on a ferry ride. There's ferry rides you can take. And you can ride up to the south of the island, just drive up and down the Hudson River, see all the same stuff, except you're sitting in a boat. Maybe a little bit safer. Now, the helicopter that went down in New York, there's a lot of investigation going on to that. And if it had an issue with a thing called Jesus nut, the entire rotor comes off. Rotor hits the back boom, and you saw the video. Killed 5 people. And that thing came down like a stone. Now, is that the right way to go see in New York? Well, that's your call, not mine. But now you understand what's going on if you want to take a ride. But you can get a ferry boat, ride the same thing, see all the same stuff, except you're doing it from the water. Now, if you want to go a different direction, allow me to talk to you about taking the Elcan Highway. Elcan is the Alaska-Canada Highway, built in the 1940s, World War II, to connect the United States with Alaska. And it's a unique road. It actually starts in Dawson's Creek, and that's up in the British Columbia. It lasts about 1,387 miles. And you're going to go through places like, St. John, Fort Nelson, Watson Lake, which is really kind of pretty, Whitehorse, another city, kind of unique, Tok, and Delta Junction. Now, I had the honor of traveling the Elcan back in the 1959, 1960s, a long time ago. And it was dirt back in those days, dirt, gravel. That's the way it was. Today, pretty much paved. I recommend if you're going to go that trip, it's an amazing trip. You can do that by car if you want to drive from, say, Vancouver and then just head north and along the Fraser River Valley. Pretty doggone cool doing that. You see a lot of stuff. It's amazing. But right now, Canadians aren't exactly being friendly right now. And you got to do a lot of pre-planning of the cost. They don't sell gasoline by the gallon, folks. They sell it by the liter. It can be pretty expensive. Or, if you don't want to drive to Alaska, well, you can take a boat. There's plenty of cruise ships that go from Vancouver all the way up to Alaska and places like Sitka, Juneau. Some of the other ones can take it clear up to Anchorage. You can take a tour up and see Denali. Denali's Mount McKinley. All of those things are available. If you're going to do a bucket list, those are items you might want to put on your bucket list, because I can tell you right now, you want to say you did something cool, that would be cool. Or, you got a lot of money, you could get on the Blue Horizon spaceship. Go straight up, last about 10 minutes, come straight back down, and say you were in space. If you got the money, you can do almost anything you want. It just depends what's on your bucket list.
Happy trails.